Hey y'all, we're continuing in the Beatitudes, and today we're focusing on Matthew 5, verse 8. Let me start by reading it. Matthew 5, verse 8 says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." This is the most comprehensive of all the Beatitudes. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. The first thing I think of is Moses. When he's on Mount Sinai and he's getting the Ten Commandments, he comes down and his face is glowing because he's been in the presence of God. And then I think about later Moses, who took things into his own hands and struck the rock to get the water out because of all the complaining the Israelites were doing, and he wasn't allowed to see the promised land. To be pure at heart means to be pure without divided interests or loyalties, free from contamination of pollution from sin. Without divided interests or loyalties and free from contamination of pollution from sin. I'm not pure of heart. I really can't think of anyone I know that's pure of heart. Anyone who's without divided interests or loyalties and free from contamination of pollution from sin. We all struggle with things. Might be pride or lust or worry or greed. Does that mean that none of us will see God? What's to be done? Well, the only way to a pure heart is through Jesus. Let's go over to Psalm 51 in the Old Testament. Here we hear David talking to God. "Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love. According to your great compassion, blot out my transgressions. Wash away all my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin." Let's skip on down to verse 7. "Cleanse me with hyssop, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow. Let me hear joy and gladness. Let the bones you have crushed rejoice. Hide your face from my sins and blot out all my iniquity. Create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me." His focus is on God. He has divided interests or loyalties that are not free from contamination or pollution from sin, but he knows God is the answer. God is the way to a pure heart, and so he calls out to God. His focus is on God. In the Beatitudes, Jesus is declaring not how we feel, blessed or happy, but what God thinks of us. He calls us blessed. We are blessed. The Beatitudes are characteristics of the person he's describing. So what is the blessing? Well, you have two parts to each Beatitude. You have the first part describing the person, and then the second part are the blessings. So you have the characteristics of the person he's describing in the Beatitude. What is the blessing? The second half is the blessing. All these blessings belong together. So you have someone who's poor in spirit, someone who mourns, someone who's meek. They have the kingdom of heaven. They have comfort. They inherit the earth. These describe the same person. Not one person who's meek and another person who mourns. These all describe someone, the same person. They describe the same Christian or an ideal Christian. This is not a formula to be mastered. It's a description of the one who seeks after Jesus, the one who knows him and becomes like him. So is this faith or works? We're now both saved because of Jesus helping us to have a pure heart, but yet not quite fully saved as we will be when we go and join him in heaven. We're saved, and the saving will come in the future. It's like we're living on a hinge. We're both saved and will be fully saved in the future. We're already saved because we already have these characteristics if we're one that's becoming more and more like Jesus. But when we live in Jesus, we're not quite yet living perfectly, and so it's not quite realized yet. Already, but not yet. When we're pure in heart, we'll see with God's eyes. We'll see what God wants us to see, what God sees. we'll be aware of too. When we're pure in heart, we'll hear with God's ears. We'll hear conversations. We'll hear things that we might not normally hear, the things that God hears, the prayers. When we're pure in heart, our heart will beat with God's heart. The things that move God will move us too. And when we're pure in heart, our hands will act as God's hands and do what God wants us to do. Some resources that have helped me see God better. Dallas Willard, anything by Dallas Willard. The Spirit of the Disciplines, Understanding How God Changes Lives, is a great resource. Ruth Haley Barton's Sacred Rhythms, Arranging Our Lives for Spiritual Transformation. Good stuff. And Tish Harrison Warren, Liturgy of the Ordinary, Sacred Practices in Everyday Life. For children, Spiritual Conversations with Children. This came out last year. Listening to God Together by Lacey Finn Borgo. Great resources. I hope you have a good week.